Good morning. This is the Eager Beaver Show.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters, CanadianTarot.com, your uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. Well, good morning and hello, kids, and welcome to season 4 and episode number 498 of the Daily Morning Show. Ooh, I feel like I'm like watching an odometer in a car. Here on the Cryo Media Network. Yeah. Today, recording day is Thursday, October 24th, 2024. And I think it's going to be a nice day at the Beaver Lodge, but the warm spell that we get in the fall in October may have come to a rather crisp and sudden end. I discovered when I went out this morning. So, it's a... The weather outside is, well, I won't say frightful, but...
Weather outside is weather.
It is far less delightful. So it is crisp. It is definitely crisp this morning. I'm your host, the Eager Beaver, pronouns he, him, hey, Mr. Beaver A. And with me, as always, is my good friend, Mr. Grizzly, who I like in this color, but I was watching the chat yesterday. People really liked you in the red.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah.
Notice.
That is your color. Let's see, what else do I have for you today? Big thank you goes to our podcast founding sponsors, the Peppermaster, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, and CanadianTarot.com. There's a lot to go through today. But before we do that, Mr. Grizzly, how's your mental health today, sir?
I think it's pretty good, actually. I'm just a little tired. I didn't sleep well, so yeah, no, I think I'm pretty good. Just a little tired, not fully awake yet on my second cup of coffee. So I think by the time we wind the show up, I should be awake.
Well, I'm in a particularly good mood because yesterday we had this curling report. So we had my 2-person stick game, and I was terrible. Well, actually, I was pretty good for the first 3 ends, and then my game went for an entire walk. So we lost that one. All my fault, unfortunately. But our doubles game, Kit, Mike, and I won again.
Oh, cool.
Seriously, I don't know what it is with this guy, but you get him to play doubles, and all of a sudden he's a freaking superstar. At one point, we had 4 sitting against us, and he absolutely had to make a shot on his last rock, and he did completely bury it, or else we were like cooked, totally cooked. So he literally was the MVP yesterday. He saved our bacon.
Oh, cool.
So, my friend, who knew?
Speaking of MVPs.
Yes.
I've got a 34-second clip for you that you're going to love. I don't know if you've seen this. It's from the House of Commons.
Okay.
And it's Let's just say there's some sloganeering that happens at the end, and oh boy.
Canadians should be alarmed by the Conservative leader choosing to ignore risks to his own party and to our country. And his excuses have all been dismissed by nonpartisan national security experts. So if he has nothing to hide, what is he afraid of? Why won't he get his security clearances? Let me put these in terms that I think the leader of the opposition might actually understand. He needs to get the clearance, take the briefing, and protect the country.
So for Slogan Boy,
Since we're going to verb the noun,
Yeah.
let's verb the noun.
get the clearance, take the briefing, protect the country. I thought that
Whoa.
was pretty good.
No, that is very, very, very
Yeah.
good. So that was a question period yesterday, which followed the meeting. Pardon me for a second.
Oh, yeah, okay. Well, I don't have much news on the meeting, which is surprising because it was a big story for a few days, and now it seems to have just disappeared. Like, I'm
Well-
not seeing anything online about it, other than what was reported yesterday.
Okay. Well, here's the thing. It seems that there is something. It's not nothing.
Mhm.
But it's not like when Stockwell Day was at the head of the Reform Party or the Canadian Alliance at that point. I'm not sure what it was called at that point. And then like Deb Gray and Chuck Strahl got up and said, we are going to sit as an independent caucus, and then other people joined them. Right? There was a meeting, and it was a 3-hour closed door meeting. Normally, the Wednesday caucus meetings take about 40 minutes or so. Right. Apparently, the Prime Minister spoke to everyone directly. Apparently, it was a little emotional, sharing that it had been a particularly difficult time. I would assume professionally and personally. Had something to do with that. And talking specifically about the F. Trudeau flags and their impact on his children, because it's their last name too. And then he spoke for the need for party unity, saying that Liberals lose when they're not united. And then basically he allowed, I don't want to say he allowed, basically the floor was open. There's reports of about 50 people or so who came up to speak. Some spoke in favor of him leaving. Some folks spoke in favor of him staying. There were folks that allegedly signed this letter who think he should leave, who spoke. Not everybody who signed the letter spoke. There are other people apparently who think that he probably should leave, who have not signed the letter, who spoke. Combination of things. It opened with MP Patrick Wheeler from Vancouver, who was the first at the mic, and he read the letter out loud. After the meeting, he said it was the most honest and frank caucus discussion I've ever had. Now, the letter was allegedly signed by 24 people. Copy was not distributed. The full list of signatories is still unknown to the caucus, which makes this kind of weird. Because there are some people that have stood up, said, I've signed the letter, put their face to it in private in this meeting, but not in public yet. They're the 3 or 4 names that we know in public now. And then there's part of this. There doesn't seem to be the impression that there's any animus towards the Prime Minister, specifically within doing this, but the writing's on the wall type vibe to it. So that's where that thing yesterday where there's even Sean Casey was saying, it's like, if he remains as leader, I'm still going to run as a Liberal. but I really think it should go. So there's a component of this that is really the MPs doing their job if this is what they literally are hearing at the doors, right? Whether they believe it too or they don't, because they have to bring that view. They have to bring that view, or else they're not doing that job. So there's a lot of different currents going around. Then you've got some people that have been on the record since June saying that he's got to go, that are there. So you've got a whole bunch of people that seem to be at different levels of unease and discomfort. Now, it seems that the letter says that the Prime Minister has until Monday to make a decision. So you've heard a lot of people saying, well, we all have a lot to think about. This is kind of weird because if the letter is calling for him to go and you're giving him till Monday to make a decision, and it doesn't seem to be all that open to the Prime Minister coming back and saying, listen, here's what we're going to do, or here's how I'm going to incorporate whatever we heard, then that's more like we're giving you till Monday to come to terms with the fact that you're going, not to make a decision. So the way that this is being presented is a little interesting. And again, there appears to be no or else. You need to go or else. Now, one of the MPs, Ken MacDonald, in an interview with media, stated something like, well, maybe there are some of us that could vote not confidence in the Prime Minister, which at first sounds like, oh my, that would be something. There's a plot twist. But if they don't want to go into the next election with the Prime Minister, but vote not confidence and make the government fall while he's the leader of the party, they commit themselves to going into an election with him. So voting no confidence in him doesn't really give them what they ultimately want. It would be more like, okay, we're willing to burn down our government in its last year because we don't want to go into an election with this guy, which seems really, really, really counterintuitive politically when political life is all about surviving. So not sure where that threat goes, because when you game it out, it doesn't give the people that are making it what they want ultimately. But they are saying that, so at least for dramatic effect. The Prime Minister was allegedly told stuff like, you are the problem, people don't want to hear from you anymore. It's pretty much. We've got a good record. We've done a lot of good things. People are starting to sense entitlement. That's always seems to be the scarlet letter around the Liberal Party.
I'm entitled to my entitlements.
Yes. So, and the Prime Minister's insistence at feeling that he's the one that needs to take on this battle against Poilievre strikes certain Canadians at the door as being yet more proof of that entitlement. So it's being perceived, according to some of the MPs that reported back, as a self-feeding loop in this case. So the desired projection of the image of being strong and determined, and my passion for Canada is such that I'm willing to go one more round against these impossible odds, seemingly. That's not what people are receiving. It would seem. Conversation was said to be respectful, but the Prime Minister's inclination, according to reports, is indeed to stay regardless. Some gave them a piece of his mind with regard to his leadership, others with regard to his team, admonishing it for not having been aggressive enough or having a combative enough attitude towards the leader of the Federal Conservative Party. Coming out of the meeting, we saw the clip of the Prime Minister walking firmly, confidently, as all the scrum journalists are clamoring. It's like, the Liberal Party is strong and united as he walks firmly and walks up the steps. So that's how it's done. One, um, that's the projection of what he should be projecting. How far that goes, because, well, there's 153 people in caucus, right? There's a lot of people to talk to. If you're the media. So, and not everyone has the same take. So, but when being asked the question, are you united behind the prime minister? There's a lot of clever pivot answering to, we're united against Polyev. If you want, do you want Trudeau as your leader? What we most certainly do not want is a Prime Minister Polyev. So whether that's a trying to pivot to turn the subject strictly on Polyev, whether or not that's a pivot, because I can't say I am fully behind the Prime Minister, but I'm not so behind the Prime Minister that I don't want to win. In this case, it can be both. It probably is both. There are probably some that are saying it in one sense and some that are saying it in another, because it is a good idea to try to focus everything and turn it back on how this guy is unacceptable, except that we really have to get past the point of saying this guy's unacceptable as a campaign.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Okay, he might be unacceptable, but then what? What are you going to do for me? All right? At some point, you've made the case that he's unacceptable. You still got to make the case why you and not them. So I hope that that's not all they're counting on. It's running on Pierre's unacceptable. So yeah, it seems that according to, again, this is according to vibes in the room based on people that were talked to afterwards, that the inner circle of the Prime Minister was maybe surprised by the number of signatories to the letter being a little larger than it thought it would. I think it might have been expecting something like 12 to 15 and something around like 24. But then there's a whole other faction that were under the impression that this was way larger, like 40 or 50, and it's not as well. So it's it's one of those mushy middle type of things. So it's like, is this a caucus revolt? Is this like the most polite caucus revolt ever? Or is this, because we're really, 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 really concerned, and we really want to know what it is that you have planned. So we have an idea as to whether or not we've got a solid campaign going on, or whether or not I should be making plans for about 7 months from now. So, if I'm about to lose my job and you're not going to do really much to fight for it, could you let me know? So these are understandable feelings.
Yeah, I just don't.
But it should not be bubbling over.
I think so much of this has been brought about by the constant barrage of negative messaging from media in this country. Constant deluge of absolute bullshit from right-wing American-owned media. I think, and I think it's starting to brainwash the public at large, and clearly members of Parliament. I mean, you have a member of federal Parliament from PEI who said that the biggest concern is healthcare. Well, then talk to the premier, you idiot. Healthcare is a provincial matter. Like, how many times do we have to keep posting this division of powers, division of responsibilities, federal, provincial, and municipal, until people learn and understand? It's like, my God, it's so disheartening that The lack of basic civics knowledge and the fact that everybody in the country has been brainwashed. I shouldn't say everybody in the country. A lot of people in this country, including, it looks like, members of parliament, have been brainwashed that all the problems and ills in the country are created by one man. And that's just simply not the case. You have to look at the provinces that are suffering. Who runs them? Conservatives. Like, this is just ridiculous. I just...
Mm. Mm, mm, mm.
It says here, the Prime Minister himself addressed the meeting. You did mention this earlier, but and two MPs told CBC News that he became emotional when he talked about his children having to see F. Trudeau signs in public. I'm like, yeah, his kids have to see that. Tell me that doesn't take an effect. That's their name too.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just, and who's been stirring up this garbage for the last number of years? The con base, Pierre Poilievre, along with Post Media.
Yeah. Now
they just keep riding it out nonstop.
Oh yeah. And again, you know what? I have no data whatsoever. I've got nothing to base this on. You know, when we talk about his and Sophie's marriage splitting up, that incident of him being emotional with regard to that, again, leads me to lean more to the side that this was I'm sorry. I just can't do another round.
Yeah. And I think that might have been a large contributing factor to it because, that's stress and strain on their family.
So.
Well, this is an interesting comment from Linda. Skippy's kids never have to see F. Poilievre flags. And look, Pierre Poilievre, as we well know, is not a popular individual amongst millions of Canadians, but we don't need to make it our entire identity that we dislike the man. We don't carry flags in the street, and we don't, look, get your security clearance or step down. That's my comment. Get your clearance or step down.
Yep, indeed. Listen, come on, MPs, make it law.
Yeah.
All you have to do is make it law.
It should be the law. It should be the law that if you are the head of a party, especially the leader of the opposition, you should have the clearance required for briefings.
Yeah, if you're the head of a party that is represented in the House with a seat, you should get the clearance. And if you're the premier of a province or territory, you should get the clearance.
Yeah, period.
You should, because you all have political organizations that could be affected, even at the municipal level, and municipalities are creations of the provinces. So you need to be looking into that, and you need to know what's going on in your backyard.
Yeah.
It's just that's it. And the Prime Minister has made that possible. He's changed the rules to make party leaders and premiers of territories and provinces eligible to receive it. So you should all be lining up.
No kidding.
You should all be lining up. There's no excuse for this.
It's just, I just don't understand the mentality. I think Vim said it best. Canadians have been gaslit. They have, because it's the constant barrage of bullshit. Eventually, you start to go, well, this isn't so bad. Hey, you know what? They may have a point. Hey, you know what? I think he's right. Hey, it's time for... And that's how it starts. It doesn't happen overnight. It's been a few years of this. I think the wave crested during the convoy, the occupation of Ottawa. That was the high point of it, if you will. And it's just, the wave crested, and it's been a tsunami of bullshit ever since.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the other thing is people are wondering... because I saw Kid James mention it, and that prompted it in my head, that one of the reasons that the revolt may not be stronger is because, well, there are 4 ministers that have announced that they will not be running again. They are still ministers at the moment, and they're not leaving the party. They all say they're going to finish their terms, but at some point they will be shuffled out. So to present the cabinet he wants to go into the election with, a lot of people are thinking like, that's why some of them are keeping calm and are being more well-behaved, because they're hoping they're in line for one. And that is possible. But remember, there's also the gender parity thing. So if you think if you assume, for example, it's a lot of men who are being restless.
Mm-hmm.
There's only so many seats up for grabs. So, right, gender parity.
Yeah, exactly.
And three of the four who just announced that they're not presenting again are women.
And I understand why they're stepping down.
Yeah.
Constant abuse, nonstop. Look, Lachlan has said it many times. The Prime Minister said it this summer when he was verbally assaulted on the beach while he was on vacation. If we continue to harass people to the extent that their lives become unlivable, how do you expect to attract good people into politics? You won't. Mm-hmm. So only the worst people will go into politics. And as a result, we're going to have some terrible things happening to us.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. Mr. Grizzly, I sent you a clip.
Mm-hmm.
It's an interview with Sean Casey. And I was mentioning it yesterday because, like I said, it's when I was saying it's not a like scream out loud, pitchfork type thing. And so I wanted you to get the sense. So I'd like for you to listen to this interview because what I'm saying when I say there is something legit. It's not like this nothing thing, but the packaging is different than what we're used to when we're talking about caucus revolt or caucus mutiny.
Well, I, just before we do that, I want to make mention of something. I had a conversation last night amongst my Scotch and Cigar group, and one of the comments was, well, what has Trudeau done? I'm like, dental care, health care, dental care, pharmacare, $10 a day child care, lifted how many restrictions on drinking water, and the response was, well, that's because of the NDP. I'm like, no, it's not. The NDP had no power to do any of that. They did it as an agreement, a supply and confidence agreement. It was done because, yeah, those are good ideas. We can make that happen. I'm like, you sound like Jagmeet Singh saying, we forced them. No, you didn't. You didn't force anybody to do anything because he could have walked away from the table at any point in time. But who tore up the agreement? Jagmeet, not the leader of the Liberal Party. Not the Liberal Party. Jagmeet tore up the agreement. And then who supported him most recently in the first non-confidence? Didn't Pierre have two of them in like a week or something?
Yeah.
The Bloc?
The Bloc had one as well.
And, you know, it's like...
I know.
You know, and the fact that he has the strength to carry on, because I'm sure a lot of people would say, to hell with this, I don't need this shit. I don't need this abuse. I don't need this shit. James is right. Nobody wants to put their hat in the ring to become Kim Campbell 2.0. He's absolutely right. Because that's your legacy then. I mean, when Brian Mulroney handed the reins to her, well, he didn't exactly hand the reins. He stepped down, and they elected her as party leader. She became prime minister. It was a sinking ship. It was the Titanic going down, and he said, here, you take over. I'm jumping in the lifeboat. So I get leader fatigue. I do. And I've spoken to a lot of people who said he won't be reelected because people are tired of him. And I'm like, yeah, but are people so tired of him that they would vote in a tyrant who refuses to get security clearance? A tyrant who we know will let his backbenchers come forward and take away a woman's right to make a healthcare choice. We know that will happen. He says he won't do anything about it, but he won't stop his MPs from doing it, which means if they get enough backbenchers in, they can put a law around a woman's right to make that choice. They can take that away. They tried to backdoor it with a law to protect pregnant women. That was a backdoor method to make abortion illegal in this country. Once they take abortion away, what's next? Same-sex marriage. And that will be on the table. And here's the funny part about that. You know how many members of the Conservative Party are so deep in the closet they don't even know where the handle door is? They would vote against their own best interest just to own the libs. I do not understand that thought process. How much self-hatred must one have to vote against your own best interest just to own the libs? What the hell is going on? We're in the upside down, and some days I just don't know how we keep moving forward. Let's have a look at this clip.
For weeks now, Liberal MPs have been privately venting their frustrations with Justin Trudeau, telling each other and leaking to reporters that there needs to be a change in the leadership of the Liberal Party. But now a veteran MP from the East Coast is putting his name and his face to the call for change in an exclusive interview with Power and Politics. Sean Casey is the Liberal Member of Parliament for Charlottetown, Prince Edward Island, and he joins me now. Sean Casey, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's nice to be with you.
I want to start with a very simple question. Do you think Justin Trudeau should stay on as Liberal leader?
No, I don't. My job has always been to project the voice of the people I represent in Ottawa, to be Charlottetown's representative in Ottawa and not the reverse. And the message that I've been getting loud and clear and more strongly as time goes by is that it's time for him to go. And I agree.
Did you come to that conclusion before you started hearing it at the doors? I mean, when you talk to people in your riding, what are your constituents saying to you?
There's a general malaise. There's a level of tiredness. The number one issue at the doors in Prince Edward Island has for a long time been healthcare. That's been supplanted by concerns over leadership, and people have had enough. They've tuned him out, and they want him to go. I can't tell you the number of people that have said to me, Sean, I'm afraid of Poilievre. I want to vote for you, but I can't.
So this is something I've heard from MPs that I've been speaking with over the last little while, and I'm sure you have read the reports and maybe even seen evidence of it yourself, of the efforts to try to force a leadership change at the top of your party. How widespread is the sentiment you've just expressed inside the Liberal caucus?
I would say it's wider than what meets the eye, honestly. There are a lot of people who have concerns. There are many who have a myriad of reasons not to express them. But those that have come to the same conclusion as me seem to be becoming more emboldened with the passage of time. I think that to a person, it's for the same reason as me, is because everywhere they go in their riding, that's what they're getting.
Do you know about these efforts to get people to sign on to a pledge or to draft a letter to bring to the Prime Minister to ask him to resign?
Only secondhand, and really not much more than what has been reported in the media. I am aware that there have been meetings. I know of some of the people who have been at the meetings. I am not one of them. I have not seen a pledge. I've heard about a pledge. And all of that is public information at this point. So I'm not much wiser than you on anything, David, including this.
Okay, because my information and my other colleagues is that maybe a couple of dozen people have either signed on or pledged to sign on. The hope is the number could grow. We saw reporting from my colleague Althea Raj in the Toronto Star that it's 30 to 40 people, MPs who maybe are part of it. Does that align with what you're seeing and hearing when you talk to people in your caucus, or does that seem way too high?
That seems plausible, but I don't have anything to base it on. I can tell you that I have not talked to or don't know of 30 or 40 people. I talked to one person that was at one of the meetings that told me there were 20 plus people there. There's probably been a dozen that I've talked to that would align with that. So the number is probably higher than a dozen and possibly higher than 20.
Okay, so 20 plus people at a single meeting to talk about trying to remove Justin Trudeau as Liberal leader. This is 20 plus Liberal MPs. I want to make sure I'm clear on what you're saying there.
That's what I've heard. I wasn't there.
Okay. You're running again, right? That's your plan as of right now, Sean Casey. Will you run again if Justin Trudeau is still the leader?
If he signs my nomination papers, I think this interview may have an impact on that.
Okay, so whether he stays or goes doesn't determine whether you stay or go, but do you think you risk repercussion by having this conversation today?
I honestly doubt it. And whether he stays or goes, yes, I am running again. I have an obligation to the people of Charlottetown to keep Pierre Poilievre out of the Prime Minister's chair in any way, shape, or form. I think I'm the
That's rich. So let's get rid of the man who's currently in.
The best bet to be able to do that. I hope my constituents feel the same way. And whether Justin Trudeau is a leader or not, if I am, I have completed all of the prerequisites to be able to run. I've done the 3,500 doors. I've got 65% of the spending limit in the bank account. I've got all the required monthly donors. So I'm good to go, and I'm girding for the fight. This is a fight worth fighting, regardless of whether or not we have Justin Trudeau leading the party.
But Justin Trudeau's argument, and the people close to him, is that he's the best option to stop Pierre Poilievre. You say, based on what you're hearing in Charlottetown, that that is not true. So if not Justin Trudeau, who should lead the Liberal Party? Are you advocating for a particular candidate or just a leadership change?
I'm advocating for a leadership change, not for a particular candidate. I think that there are several very qualified people who would inspire the country. Any one of a handful of names that we frequently hear. And unfortunately, people have tuned Justin Trudeau out. I think a robust leadership convention would spark a lot of interest, bring forward some new ideas, and have people looking at the Liberal Party all over again without the malaise or the tiredness factor that we see every day.
There has been an argument I've heard from MPs, we're both East Coasters, I've heard it from that part of the country, that they believe the ceiling of accessible voters goes way up if there is a leadership change, and there's a potentially broader pool of the electorate open to you. I'm told this is something that has been discussed pretty widely in Atlantic Caucus. Is that something you and your colleagues are talking about?
That's something that I've heard, and I think that's something that everyone is talking about, quite frankly. If Justin Trudeau was to leave, there would be risk. If there was a divisive leadership contest, there would be risk. But the upside of having a new leader is significantly higher than if he stays, in my view.
What does it say, Mr. Casey, that 20 plus people from inside your caucus are having meetings to talk about the need for a leadership change? I mean, what does that say where you are right now as a party? Because that suggests a pretty high level of anxiety inside that caucus.
You're exactly right. There's a high level of anxiety, and there are members of caucus that every single day are hearing it in their communities, and they've come together. I mean, that's what we do. We are constantly comparing notes and determining how best to advance the interests of our constituents.
So I can hear the pushback now. You're an MP who's been around a while. You're not in cabinet. There's sour grapes motivating this. You know this is going to come from certain circles. I mean, what do you say to what is likely to be the pushback here? Because since news of these letters and these efforts started circulating on Friday, that's kind of been a bit of the pushback, that it's the people who never got what they wanted when the Liberals formed government.
This is not about me. This is about the people that I've been elected to represent. And if people want to take shots at me, I guess that's kind of what I signed up for. But that's not the reason I'm here, and that's not the reason why I am doing my best to be the voice of Charlottetown in Ottawa.
You've looked at the polls just like everybody else has. If Justin Trudeau stays and you go into the election without a massive change, I mean, where do you think the Liberal Party ends up based on what you're seeing and hearing out there?
It's honestly hard to know. The campaign's going to matter. I think the longer the spotlight shines on Poilievre, the less people are going to like him. I don't think that a turnaround in the economy is all of a sudden going to cause people to flock to the Liberal Party under Justin Trudeau again. It's hard to know. I think there is significant downside and limited upside, so I'm worried.
So you think a change in leadership potentially lowers the floor, but also potentially dramatically raises the ceiling for Liberals. Have you expressed this to the Prime Minister, to the Prime Minister's office? Do they know you feel this way?
Yes, I had a direct conversation with the Prime Minister on July the 5th and said to him many of the things that I'm saying to you now, including that in my view, history will be very kind to Justin Trudeau. The things that he has put in place over the last 9 years have been truly transformational.
Then why are you asking him to step down?
But the electorate are no longer listening to him.
So this,
And we had that conversation on July the 5th. The Prime Minister knows exactly how I feel.
okay, so this was the phone calls the Prime Minister was making in the wake of Toronto St. Paul's. Is that what this was, the outreach to people to see how they felt? This was part of that effort, Mr. Casey?
That's exactly right.
So what do you think happens next? The information in my reporting and what I'm hearing from other colleagues is that the people who are having these meetings of 20 plus and trying to get people to sign on to a document of some kind to bring sort of a demand or a request to the Prime Minister, this could all come to a head next week when MPs are back in Ottawa and when Parliament resumes, and of course you've got your National Caucus on next week. What do you think happens when everybody is back in the capital city?
I think you're right. I think it will come to a head. It came to a head more than a year ago in London, Ontario at Summer Caucus. There was a widespread expectation that that would happen again in Nanaimo. It didn't, but I don't think there's any doubt that that there will be a concerted effort this week to air these grievances in a private setting. Private until it leaks has been the experience, unfortunately. So yes, I do expect that will happen. But as I said, I have not attended any of the meetings. I expect that there is a coordinated plan being developed. I'm not part of it. But yes, I do expect this absolutely to be brought into the light of day within those four walls next week.
Just as a final point, it didn't come to a head in Nanaimo, as you say. My understanding is because everyone was kind of waiting to see what happened in La Salle Marde Verdun, which was kind of a repeat of Toronto St. Paul's. Do you think that has been a trigger point for a lot of this, that Toronto was bad, Montreal was just worse, and then the lack of a clear change in strategy and change in the polls just has fueled this unrest?
Yes, that and what people are hearing day in and day out. But what people are hearing day in and day out is influenced by the things that you just mentioned.
Sean Casey, Liberal Member of Parliament for Charlottetown. Thank you for joining us today, sir. Appreciate the time.
My pleasure.
So
as you can see, right, it's not big dramatics, right?
no,
Because and I see a lot of comments in the chat that are sort of like, not very happy that he's saying this, but I need you to also understand this from the point of view of a listener that is sort of undecided, could maybe want to vote Green or Liberal, could vote NDP or Liberal, could vote Bloc or Liberal, even, a moderate conservative that doesn't have anywhere else to go, but just can't and is considering voting Polyev, thinking he won't be that bad or something will keep him in check, right? That interview comes across as really reasonable.
I think so. There was some things he said that I thought were nonsensical, though.
Right.
Well, this government has been transformative and history will smile. I'm like, then why are you trying to get rid of the man?
Because people have tuned him out.
I get
right?
that, yeah.
So, and I mean, that is the thing, because I mean, my commentary is the same thing, right? With all the stuff that he's done, and he's a boxer, he plays the long game, don't underestimate him.
Mm-hmm.
There's still some time, but the only exception to that is if Canadians truly have tuned him out, then none of that matters. That's just the sad reality.
I've come to grips with the fact that the next election we could very much have a new government. What that government will look like, I don't know. I shudder to think that it would be a conservative government led by Pierre Poilievre. I don't think Poilievre will be around because I think come January or is it December or January when the inquiry information gets released?
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
We might see him removed. I don't know. Like, I do not know what's going to come of this, what to expect. It's, let's see what happens once that the findings get released. That, of course, what can be released to the public, because they won't release absolutely everything. But when that information comes out, like I said, when Jagmeet Singh tore up the supply and confidence agreement, made me wonder, what's he not telling us? He knows something we don't. He's seen the reports. He's read them top to bottom. So I'm wondering if, like I said at the time, and I'll repeat it again here today, did he read something in there that would suggest that Polyev is compromised?
Could be.
Or the party has serious issues? I mean, there's, 11 names? And we know that some of them are Liberal members of Parliament. We don't know who, to what degree, but there's 11 names. Some of them are Liberals. Apparently, most of them are Conservative, apparently. Elizabeth May has come forward and said multiple times, Polyev needs to get his clearance.
Mhm.
Every MP is saying the same thing now. Every leader, I should say, is saying the same thing. Not every
Right.
MP. But every leader is saying the same thing. Get your clearance. Get your clearance. Just like we said at the top of the show. Get the clearance. Read the report. Protect the country.
Yeah. Yep. Since we were talking a little bit about Prime Minister Trudeau and how he was talking about all those flags affected his family, wanted to take a little sidestep to New Brunswick Premier Susan Holt. In her acceptance speech, had a few thoughts about her family.
This is the hardest one, but it's the biggest one. I have to thank John Holt. This man who has been dying to be called Mr. New Brunswick. Et je vais le dire en français parce qu'il a pris 777 jours à apprendre le français à chaque jour. Il fait un travail pour vous, Nouveau-Brunswick. I couldn't do this without him. I know everyone in this room knows it, that I couldn't do this without him, that we couldn't do this without him. He is the other half of this little team Holt, and he puts his heart and soul into our family and our neighbors every day with very little thanks. He has believed in me since we were 16 years old. And I would not be here if it wasn't for him. So I love you. Thank you. Let's go. I also want to say two other particular things to these three amazing ladies, Molly, Paige, and Brooke. I am obviously incredibly proud of my girls. They have been phenomenal throughout this roller coaster, and there's going to be a roller coaster ahead. So I want to take a minute to ask the public and the media, my mama bear is going to come out, please treat my children with care.
Yeah.
Because they are sacrificing for New Brunswick, and they are very special people, and I hope that you will treat them as gently as they deserve to be treated, as every kid in New Brunswick deserves to be treated.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a very, very nice way to put it.
Very nice way. Yeah. Very nice way. Calling for the public to show the respect her children well, clearly haven't earned because they're children, but they deserve. They deserve because they're children.
Yeah.
Don't put them in the middle of it. Don't be like Mark Slapinski.
Mm-hmm.
Remember what he did about Trudeau's daughter?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what a disgusting human being. She's a little girl.
Mm-hmm.
I'll reserve my violent thoughts about what I'd like to do to that man if he steps in front of me. I'll reserve them and keep them internal. But I think you have a pretty good idea. I'll keep my thoughts to myself on that one, but I think you have a pretty good idea.
I wish I could do the Marge Simpson grumble there.
Yeah.
I feel you. I feel you, my friend.
They're children. Leave the kids out of it.
Yeah. No. It was for those who are not familiar or don't know. Soon after the divorce was announced, he went with his son to go see the Barbie movie, and they both took a picture together. They were dressed in pink. And then a couple of days later, he went with his daughter to see the movie Oppenheimer, and she was dressed however she was dressed, which was her choice. And then some people decided to make the jokes about cropped Oppenheimer.
Mm-hmm. And he got a little bit more vulgar.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He got a lot more vulgar, and the pictures with the son were framed as Trudeau out with his new boyfriend.
Yeah, his son.
Like, so, yeah.
You know, all of this.
You leave the kids out.
All of this makes me think of Trudeau Senior, Pierre. And if he was going through, and he went through a lot of abuse before he took his walk in the snow. I think with members of Parliament, backbenchers, calling for him to step down, I think Pierre Trudeau would have treated this differently than Justin Trudeau does. Justin Trudeau has the charisma of his father, but and the fire, but he has the compassion of his mother. Mm-hmm. And I say that because I think Pierre would have said, fuddle-duddle to you on the news and said, screw all you, I'm out of here. You're going to stab me in the back after what I've done? I'm out of here. See ya. You're on your own. Throw the gasoline, light the match, and walk away. I think the difference...
don't need to take this crap from some conservative money-loving freaks like you. Screw you guys. I'm going
Basically. Whereas the difference with Justin Trudeau is he has the compassion of his mother and wants to do the best for the country. He has the fiery temper of his father, for sure, and the charisma of his father, which has gotten more charismatic over time. But he has the compassion of his mother, and that is what plays here, why he wants to stay on, because he sees that we're in peril right now. We're on the edge. We have a leader of the opposition who refuses to get his security clearance, refuses to. I wonder if he's capable of it even. Because when you keep refusing, and his excuse is, well, Trudeau can just write top secret on anything he wants, and then I can't talk about it. No, that's not how it works. Top secret briefings are given to you by CSC and CSIS. That's it. Or the RCMP or the DND. The Prime Minister does not determine what is top secret. He is given a briefing, he reads it, he can forward it along to those he feels should be necessary to read it, and if they have the proper clearance, they get to do so. But you've got a man who refuses to get his clearance. Now, that makes me wonder why. They're going to find out something about his past that he doesn't want people to know? That could become public? When he had his clearance for the Privy Council, I guarantee you they found out those things, but they kept them private. Is he worried that because he has created so much hatred for himself in the House of Commons by other members of Parliament because of the childlike three-word slogans that he drops on the daily and has all of his barking seals doing the same? Does he think that maybe somebody would say, oh, I got this information, I'm going to release it to screw this guy over? I'm questioning all of these things because we don't know. But it seems to me that if you were capable of getting your clearance, you would do so to protect the country. because he's the only one who can oust members of his party unless they get charged and arrested by the RCMP, right?
Right. Right.
I mean, it's the leader of the party needs to clear it up.
Yep. No, yeah, absolutely. And as Elizabeth May made it very, very, very clear in one of her latest videos that I saw going around, it is literally only he who can make the first domino fall in the whole chain of him getting that clearance.
Correct.
Right. And his party being informed about it. It is literally only he. He has to decide that he is going to sit for the clearance. If he's not willing, nothing happens unless that happens, and the entirety of the power for that is within his hands. Yep. Now, if he starts the process and he somehow can't get the clearance, that is out of his hands. But it's like, sorry, dude, you did or did not do something at some point in your life recently, relative recently, that made it such that you can't get it. Now, if the reason you're not willing to make that first domino fall is because you know you can't get it, then all of a sudden there's a whole bunch of behavior that makes sense.
Well, and I mean, some of the things people point to that the reason he might not be able to pass is because of his wife and her family and some of their ties back in Venezuela, which seem to be, from what I've read online, it looks like her father was a member of a crime syndicate. I don't know if that is true. I keep seeing these stories. I've not been able to confirm it, so I don't know. Maybe there's something there. I really don't know. But he just continues to refuse to get it. And that needs to change so that in the future, a leader of a party must be able to get their clearance and should have it, period. Especially the leader of the opposition, no matter the party.
Yeah, and now with what we see with the foreign interference inquiry, because there's overlap, there's interference in the leadership races, and there's that whole tenant thing and the bot farms thing and the propaganda. It's like, he might be entirely unacceptable in his own right with stuff having nothing to do with his wife and her.
Yeah, we don't know.
As well, right? Or it could be both. He could be unacceptable for both reasons. Who knows, right? But this whole foreign interference thing, if it is witting and not unwitting, or if it is unwitting, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, you didn't see anything.
Yeah.
Right? That's really, really bad news. That's really, really bad news for him. So, not wanting to, there's a reason he does not want to make that first domino fall, and it has nothing to do with him being muzzled, because that has been debunked 7 ways from Sunday.
Yes. Yeah. And he keeps trying to go to that well and say, well, it's because they'll muzzle. No, that has been debunked by many people, many of which are professionals and used to run CSIS.
Oh, speaking of his royal weirdness, today, while all this stuff is going on, Pierre Poilievre will once again be doing what Pierre Poilievre does best, which is putting himself first.
Of course.
Because according to iPolitics, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre circles back to the Greater Toronto Area, and more specifically the upscale enclave of North York, to mix and mingle with local supporters during an afternoon reception at the Oakdale Golf and Country Club. Yes, he is really, 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 really seized by the issues. Just saying, your priorities are that for which you make time. Just saying. little bits of news for you. Montreal Mayor Valérie Plante says she will not run again for a third mandate. She is the first woman elected mayor of Montreal in 2017. Her party will have a leadership contest because in Montreal there are actual political parties at the municipal level, but they don't mirror in name anything at the provincial level. She said that she will remain in her chair until her time is over and will help with the transition. Quote, recently I came to realize that I couldn't commit to another 4 years and guarantee Montrealers the same level of energy I've always given. It leads me to tell you that I'm fine, I'm all good, and I will fully assume my duties as mayor until the end of my mandate. So there you go. Other big news that happened yesterday is that the Bank of Canada dropped its rate 50 basis points to 3.75%. We had so that's now a total drop of 1.25 from the high of 5.25. Analysts are expecting another 50 basis points drop before the end of the year, sometime in December, with the rate settling around 2.5%. Some analysts are even expressing the possibility that it would go down to 2%. This is new talk. 2.5 was about the lowest I heard it go down. And at the time that I heard it go down, that was new talk because it was really like 3, maybe 2.75 at the most, because 3 was being presented as the ideal sort of target, the neutral rate. And this is definitely lower, especially if it goes to 2. But there's less confidence in the 2. That's the most optimistic. But 2.5 seems to be emerging as a consensus to how low it could go. This is the 4th decrease since June of this year. And this, when we get down to 3%, and we're at 3.75 now, that will be the first plateau of resistance for future cuts. So the Bank of Canada may slow down cuts around that time to wait to see what a few months of economic data show before going lower again. But that could be a point of resistance in terms of the rate to cut drops. Canada says that a desire to support economic growth and maintaining inflation near its ideal target rate of 2% are what's at play here. The bank predicts a slightly slowing economy in the second half of the year, with the gross interior product increasing by about 1.2% in 2024, which is very moderate growth requiring a lowering of interest rates, according to the Governor of Bank of Canada, Tiff Macklem. The interest rate cuts are expected to stimulate the economy again in the coming year. As for inflationary pressures, the bank states that they are no longer generalized, but the bank doesn't want the inflation rate to go lower than 1.6 where it is right now, because they don't want to be in a negative cycle of deflation, which can spiral very quickly, and there are not many tools in order to pull up from that. But right now, I don't think it has to worry so much because that inflation rate of 1.6, like we said, is almost artificially low by how much the price of gas has dropped. If you remove the price of gas, which is very volatile from that number, inflation actually came in at 2.2%. So there's still 0.2 to go to hit the actual target of 2 if you don't factor in gas. So I think that the bank is still doing okay, even though 1.6 would cause a little bit of panic at first. It is being so pulled out of whack by a temporary, very quickly and rapidly fluctuating and volatile factor. So when you look beyond the numbers, it's not as scary as one would first think. The governor said we've got inflation down, we're back to low inflation, and we've got to keep it there. I'm just going to look through the opening statement here. In the statement, the governor said, in the past few months, inflation has come down significantly from 2.7% in June to 1.6% in September. Recent indicators suggest it will be around 2% in October. Price pressures are no longer broad-based, and both our measures of core inflation are now under 2.5%, sorry. Our surveys also find that businesses and consumer expectations of inflation have shifted down and are nearing normal. All this suggests we are back to low inflation. This is good news for Canadians. Now our focus is to maintain low, stable inflation, we need to stick the landing. This means the upward and downward forces on inflation need to balance out. Household spending and business investment have picked up this year, but remain soft. This softness has helped take the remaining steam out of inflation, but with inflation back to 2%, we want to see growth strengthen. Today's interest rate decision should contribute to a pickup in demand. The bank forecasts inflation will remain close to target over the projection horizon. The upward pressure from shelter and other services is expected to gradually diminish. With stronger demand, the downward pressure on inflation is also forecast to dissipate, keeping the upward and downward forces roughly balanced. If the economy evolves broadly in line with this forecast, we anticipate cutting our policy rate further to support demand and keep inflation on target. The timing and pace of further interest rate cuts will depend on incoming information and our assessment of its implications for the inflation outlook. We will take our monetary policy decisions one at a time. And then when asked what he sees in the economy, says after stalling in the second half of last year, the economy grew by about 2% in the first half of this year, and we expect growth of 1 3/4 in the second half. The economy remains in excess supply and labor market is soft. The unemployment rate was 6.5% in September. Job layoffs have remained modest, but business hiring has been weak, which has particularly affected young people and newcomers to Canada. Simply put, the number of workers has increased faster than the number of jobs. And on that, the federal government just announced yesterday that today they will be making an announcement on temporary residence permits for next year. And it seems that they're going to cut the number of them down from 485,000 to 395,000 for this year. So that will be a significant decrease. That will help with this particular portion that the Governor of Bank of Canada is speaking about. Looking ahead, GDP growth is forecast to gradually strengthen to around 2% in 2025 and 2.25% in 2026, supported by lower interest rates. This forecast largely reflects the net effect of a gradual pickup in consumer spending per person and slower population growth. We also expect growth in residential investment to rise as strong demand for housing lifts sales and spending on renovations. Business investment is expected to strengthen as demand picks up, and exports should remain strong, supported by robust demand from the United States. There you go. And then he goes into some risks and stuff that he's looking at. But I think you have to be going soon, Mr. Isley.
Yes, I do. I just wanted to share two quick things with you. I don't know if you saw this little tidbit from Pierre Poilievre. He tweeted this the other day. I'll read it for those of you listening. And it starts off with a lie and continues on. The hellish human consequences of socialism. After 9 years of the NDP Liberals, the number of kids in Toronto's homeless shelters has tripled. Carbon taxes drive up energy costs. Bureaucracy blocks home building, while too many people and too much money printing balloon housing. The guy just can't open his mouth without lying. He can't hit a keyboard without lying. I just unbelievable. And one last thing before I go, because I do have to walk the dog and then get my day started. Remember, folks, it's always darkest before the dawn and there's a light at the end of the tunnel. There's only one problem. The shape of the light at the end of the tunnel. For those of you listening, there will always be a light at the end of the tunnel. And the light at the end of the tunnel looks like somebody flipping off the bird. Yeah. Alrighty, I gotta go. I will. I'll see you tomorrow. And maybe I got some shorts I'm going to post a little bit later. I got a few things I got to get done today, but I will see you all later. Take care.
All right. Okay, Kids Cubs. You've got me for a little bit longer because I have a couple little bits, more bits of news for you. Going back to the Bank of Canada, the governor of the bank said when looking to risks here, the decline in inflation in recent months reflects the combined efforts of lower global oil prices, slightly lower shelter price inflation in Canada, and lower prices for many consumer goods like cars and clothes. Going forward, we can expect to continue to see some monthly fluctuations in inflation, But overall, inflation is expected to remain close to target over the projection horizon as upward pressure from shelter and other services gradually diminishes and excess supply in the economy is absorbed. There are risks around our inflation outlook. The biggest downside risk to inflation is that it could take longer than anticipated for household spending and business investment to pick up. Our recent surveys suggest business expect subdued sales and their hiring and investment plans are modest. On the upside, lower interest rates could fuel a stronger rebound in housing activity or wage growth could remain high relative to productivity. There is also elevated geopolitical uncertainty and the risk of new shocks. Overall, we view the risks around our inflation forecast as reasonably balanced. With inflation back to 2%, we are now equally concerned about inflation coming in higher or lower than expected. The economy functions well when inflation is around 2%. In conclusion, the governor says, high inflation and interest rates have been a heavy burden for Canadians. With inflation now back to target and interest rates continuing to come down, families, businesses, and communities should feel some relief. The bank is committed to maintaining price stability for Canadians by keeping inflation close to the 2% target. And there you go, kids and cubs. Miss Shanika, yay! I love the Douglas takeovers. Thank you so much. That has to do with Mr. Grizzly's new gig. I believe it's Tuesdays to Thursdays. He has a harder out around 8 or so in order to be able to get there on time. So given that Restream has switched it up, that I'm no longer in the co-host suite, but in the hosting suite, I can actually keep going and then end the show when I need to. So that's kind of cool. But it's kind of weird too at the same time to start with Mr. Grizzly and then finish without him. But thank you for the love, kids. I really appreciate the compliments. Just a couple of other things for you today before we have to go. Preparations for the search of the remains of Indigenous women in Manitoba are about to enter their next phase, according to the CBC. Morgan Harris and Mercedes Myron were killed by a convicted murderer in 2022, and police believe their remains are in a Winnipeg area landfill. The province says that the construction of a search facility is almost ready. According to Manitoba Premier Wab Kinew, quote, I hope that you understand that this province cares about you, that you understand that the people of Manitoba are good people and want your loved ones to have the dignity that they deserve. The province expects to begin the search in early December specifically there. So it's good to see that there's been some movement on that file. What else do I have for you? Yes. So about the permanent residence, the changes to that. As I mentioned very quickly when I was talking about the bank story, the interest rate story, this according to Reuters, Canada will sharply lower the number of immigrants it allows into the country for the first time in years, marking a notable shift in policy for the government as it tries to remain in power. Canada will bring in 395,000 new permanent residents in 2025, 380,000 in 2026, 365,000 in 2027, down from 485,000 in 2024, according to a government source. The number of temporary residents, meanwhile, will decrease by about 30,000 to around 300,000 in 2025, the source said. The new targets were first reported by the National Post. Canada has long prided itself on welcoming newcomers, but in recent years, the national debate around immigrants has shifted in part due to rising house prices. Many Canadians have been priced out of the housing market since interest rates started rising 2 years ago. At the same time, a huge influx of immigrants has pushed Canada's population to record levels, further boosting housing demand and prices. The issue has become one of the most contentious in Canadian politics, with the federal election due no later than October 2025. Polls show a growing share of the population thinks Canada has too many immigrants. There has been a backlash against newcomers, and more reported hate crimes against visible minorities, advocates, and community members say. Migrant advocates slammed the change. Quote, we are witnessing one of the most egregious rollbacks of migrant rights in Canadian history, Syed Hussain, spokesperson of the Migrant Rights Network Secretariat, said in a statement. Quote, cutting permanent resident numbers is a direct assault on migrants who will be forced to remain temporary or become undocumented, pushed further into exploitative jobs. The office of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau was not immediately available to comment. It's because they're making an announcement today officially. The new immigration targets also mark a shift from the pandemic era when the government loosened rules on temporary residents to help fill labor shortages. Last year, Canada had planned to bring in 500,000 new permanent residents in 2025 and the same amount in 2026. As of the second quarter of 2024, there were 2.8 million temporary residents, including workers and students, in Canada, according to Statistics Canada. So that is what is going on there. There is also Kids and Cubs, because we mentioned it when it happened, but then we didn't hear too much about what was going on, which was the port strike in Montreal. Because there was the one in Montreal, and then there was the one in the United States that started, and the one in the United States was settled very, very quickly indeed. But the one in Montreal appears to be persisting, and Labour Minister Stephen McKinnon still says that he is trying to keep out of it, according to iPolitics here from Marco Vigliotti. Labour Minister Stephen McKinnon says it's up to the Longshore Workers Union and Employers Association to find a way forward and avoid a paralyzing work stoppage at the Port of Montreal after his offer to appoint a special mediator was rejected. Speaking to iPolitics on Tuesday, he said it's clear that negotiations between the two sides have hit a, quote, real snag, but their differences need to be resolved through the collective bargaining process. He refused to commit to further intervention in the event of a work stoppage, offering up only the full resources of the federal mediation and conciliator service. Quote, obviously, shutdowns at the port pose a difficult problem, and that's why collective bargaining must succeed, and that's why we must let it take its course. Last week, McKinnon proposed a 90-day freeze on strikes and lockouts at the port, and appointing a special mediator work with both sides to hammer out a deal after bargaining stalled earlier this month. But on Monday, he said on social media that a deal couldn't be reached and that it was now up to the Maritime Employers Association and the Longshore Workers Union must now find a path towards negotiated agreement as quickly as possible. He added that the federal mediators remain on hand to help with the contract talks, where scheduling and wages have proven a major stumbling block. On October 10th, nearly 1,200 dock workers at the country's second largest port launched an indefinite strike on overtime shifts, a week after they carried out a 3-day strike at 2 container port terminals. The dispute in Montreal comes amid lingering uncertainty over the fate of labor talks at Canada's West Coast ports. Negotiations between the local Employers Association and Foreman Union have remained stalled for months. The Federal Labor Board is expected to make a much-anticipated ruling on the association's bad faith bargaining complaint this week. So there you go, Kits and Cubs, with that. And I think that's all I had for you today, if I'm not mistaken. But I will take one last little check at that before we go, just to be absolutely sure on that for you. Yep, that is pretty much the big stuff for me today. In the United States, by the way, because I saw there was some chat earlier on about Kamala Harris going or not going on Joe Rogan's show. I haven't actually, I'm not actually aware, to be totally honest, if she has actually agreed or she's still mulling it over. I'm with those who think that it's a good idea. You go where the population is. We saw the interview on Fox News as well. It was a rough ride, of course, but she handled herself quite adeptly. And people got to see Brett Baer be a bit more of a bully than a journalist in that exchange, which certainly didn't hurt in helping make her look good. So Joe Rogan tends to have more conversations. So I think it would be an opportunity for people to get to know another side of her, especially given the narrative out there that she seems to have a problem with men and black men in particular. So I don't think that she has much to lose from the opportunity. So I hope she does say yes to it. She says that next week, I believe on Tuesday, she is going to go to the National Mall to make her closing argument for the election. And this is a symbolic choice of location, of course, because that's where her opponent went to on January 6, 2021, to encourage his followers to march on the Capitol and quote unquote fight like hell. So it's going to mark a big contrast from the last time somebody for whom Americans could vote for president was there. It also seems that more than 23 million votes have already been cast ahead of Election Day. So there you go, kids. And I've just realized I say there you go a lot. And that's something I might have to change as my segue. Kids and cubs, thank you so much for indulging me for a little extended beaver. We hope that you loved listening to us because we loved making this for you. Remember that sharing is caring and word of mouth is priceless. And you have the mouse from which we want the word to come. So please tell your peeps and poops all about us. So grateful that you join us every morning and every day for those of you who listen on a podcast. If you would like to support us, for example, by making sure you don't miss an episode, because you don't have to, thanks to the Ray Girl. She sponsors our pod page. That's podpage.com/TheTrueNorthEagerBeaver, lowercase letters with the hyphen between each one of those words, or you just scan that QR code right there, and that will bring you to our subscribe button, which if you click, once you do that, once we have something fresh off the bandwidth, it comes directly to you. Just like that. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Now, if you would like to support us in other ways, then you need to make like Kit Elaine and have a beyond awesome day, everyone, and surf on down to the True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated YouTube page, kids and cubs. That QR code that appears right there will bring you there. And there we have 3 buttons for you. One's called like, one's called share, and the other's called subscribe. And they're just tickled pink when you click on them. And, well, it also helps us out a lot. So thank you for all your support. Now, if you would like to support us in yet another way, and that would be financially, then you could go to our coffee page. That's where you will find our tip jar, or also known as the Emergency Hydration Fund, because as you can hear in my voice, it is a little dry, and therefore we need to keep a beaver nice and moist. Yum, 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 yum. Love that water. So if you would like to encourage us because you like our product and you would like to support us and think that we should be doing more of it, if you scan that QR code, it brings you to our tip jar. And if you can leave us a little contribution there, we would be most grateful for that. All of it gets reinvested back into producing this show and bringing it to you. We do have some costs in doing that. So anything that you can donate is very helpful and greatly appreciated. Now, if you are not able to contribute financially, please do not worry another second more about it, because the gift of your participation and your attention is the one that we cherish the most. And we do love to hear from you. So please write to us at truenortheagerbeaver@gmail.com. Tell us what you think about the show, good, bad, or ugly. But if ugly, please be gentle. Okay? We are sensitive creatures. If you could want to write us on other platforms, you can at our Twitter page at True Eager, our Facebook page, True North Eager Beaver, or if you happen to already be listening on our YouTube, I was going to say LubeTube, YouTube channel. That's a whole different channel. Oh my word. Whoa, that was a Freudian. If you're listening on our YouTube channel, please leave a comment down below. We read everything, not able to get back to everyone, but we do read everything. And we thank you so very much for everything that you share with us. It all helps to making the show better. And we are grateful for it. because democracy is something that you do if you happen to live in the beautiful province of Saskatchewan, it turns out that there is early voting. Thank goodness. And early voting is on from October 22nd, so started 2 days ago, to the 26th. So you still have 3 days, 24th, 25th, 26th, from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. Central Time to go and drop off your ballot there. And of course, voting day is on Monday the 28th. I do not know if we will be having a results show for Saskatchewan Kits and Cubs, mainly because I will be at the Ottawa Beaver Lodge, and we will be preparing to go to the, what is the name of the conference? I should note that specifically. But we did get, as we mentioned a few weeks ago, we got some media accreditation to be able to cover a conference on homelessness, I believe it is. Darn, I wish I could remember it off the top of my head, the title of it. But yes, we are going to be going to that conference, and it is called the National Conference on Ending Homelessness in Ottawa. So it's October 29th to the 31st. And like I said, we have received media accreditation. So hopefully we will talk to people who are presenting over there. And there are 3 keynote presenters, 4 of them now, actually, if I remember correctly. So there's Jennifer Botterill, there's Guy Felicella, there is a Pulitzer Prize winner whose name is Connie Walker, and then Mark Horvath, who's the newest name to this list. He's an activist, a filmmaker, and a social media explorer. And he will be turning his own experience with homelessness into a catalyst for social good, sparking a collective call to action for meaningful change. So hopefully we will get to speak to those 4 people, get some live interviews. And this is the first time we're going to be doing this type of thing, Kits and Cubs. So remote on the location, trying to cover a live event that is going on, and then bringing you what it is that we have found. So it should be interesting. Hopefully the technology will work for us, but we thought that given the names of the people that were coming and the subject matter, given that housing is such a big topic, we figured it probably would be a good idea to cover the event and bring that to you, and try to expand the quality and the type of information that we can give you, not just curated from watching social media and news clips and news articles, but actually getting out there in the field and talking to people. So we try to do that with our interview project. Pardon me. Having extended conversations with people in order to bring you, the full story and issues in full sentences. But this will be actually going to a gathering where there's a whole bunch of experts in the field looking at the subject from a whole bunch of various ways. There are so many different tracks when it comes to this conference. There's a youth homelessness prevention. Then there's accelerating reductions in chronic and veteran homelessness as a track. There's a housing first track. There's an indigenous homelessness track. There's lived experience leadership track. Rural, remote, and northern homelessness. So hopefully we'll be able to do that for you. Is there a pubcast coming up? We're trying to come up with one. The problem is I cannot get to Ottawa during the weekend. I can get there Monday. So if there is a pubcast coming up, it either will have to be something that I do here from home if we're doing one in October, or we might possibly do 2 in November. One in really early November, and just say it's like October 35th or something. get around it that way. What we would like to find a way to bring a podcast to you, because it has been a little while since the other one, because our September one came early in the month. But yes, we will work. We just, it's definitely not going to work on a Saturday or a Sunday as usual before the end of the month. So we'll have to find another way to do that, kids and cubs. But I will talk to Mr. Grizzly about that, because I love our podcast days. So there you go. So next week will be a bit of interesting programming. I will be a lot at the Ottawa Beaver Lodge. I don't know if we will be doing morning shows before heading to the conference, or heading to the conference and then packaging some stuff together and then giving it to you as a pre-record the next morning. We haven't settled those logistics yet, kids and cubs, but we will have shows for you next week, one way or the other. Okay. They might even be at a different time. Who knows? They might not be a morning show next week, depending on how it is. We really don't know. Like I said, this is the first time we're doing this, so we're kind of flying by the seat of our pants and figuring it out as we go along. But hopefully we will have wonderful content for you as a result of this. And we thank you for your support, because it's because of it that we are able to get ourselves the equipment that will allow us to go out into the field and do that type of stuff. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right. That was long, because democracy is something that you do. Portion. Words of wisdom, kits and cubs. I'm not typically good at this part. Mr. Grizzly is way better than I at words of wisdom. But I will say, kits and cubs, that remember that the only thing you really can control, and one of the few things that you own outright, are your own emotions, feelings, and reactions. So if the world around you is spinning a little too fast for your liking, remember, you might not be able to stop the world or slow it down, but you can control how you react to it. So nothing wrong with, again, a little stillness and taking a couple times to recenter yourself and make sure that you're in the proper frame to go out there and take on the world. All right? There you go. Okay. That's all I got for you, kids and cubs. So I believe it would now be time to cue the cock. You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters, CanadianTarot.com, their uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. We are grateful to the Crier Media Network for its support, Pete Jarvis for our artwork, and Paul Joseph Something for our opening and closing sequence music. You know, I can't leave you without a couple of beaver dad jokes. All right. Let's see. How does a cow take its coffee? Decaf with a little cream and sugar. Ah. All right. Why did the banana go to the doctor? It wasn't peeling very well. All right, kids. Have a most beaverific day. Oh, hi, Cassie. See you popping in right at the end. Mwah. Lots of love.